The security guard's hand was a cold, hard clamp on my elbow. I tried to pull away, but he was huge, his grip firm. Victor stood in the doorway of his office, his face pale but his eyes alight with cruel, narcissistic triumph. "I told you, Marcus. We need dynamic thinkers here, not someone stuck in the past." Victor sneered, his voice loud enough for the cubicles nearby to hear. I was still holding the termination notice, my head spinning from the shock. As the guard steered me toward the main exit, the true, agonizing betrayal hit me. I saw the lights flickering inside the huge conference room. Colorful balloons bobbed near the ceiling. A massive catering spread was being set up, and the music started, a loud, celebratory beat. They were throwing a party for my replacement. I was escorted out while they threw a party for my replacement. I felt the blood rush from my face, replaced by a sudden, freezing cold anger that was terrifyingly calm. What the hell just happened to him? The guard's grip tightened as I stopped, watching the humiliating spectacle unfold. I am Marcus, and I am 35 years old. For 6 years, I had given everything to Ether Financial, especially to Project Sentinel, the multi-million-dollar data integrity software I designed and managed. I had pulled all-nighters, fixed Victor's arrogant mistakes, and covered for his incompetence, always believing my loyalty and hard work would be rewarded. But the rewards never came. Victor had denied my last 2 promotion requests, claiming I lacked team synergy. The truth, I now saw, was that he wanted the credit for Sentinel's imminent success and knew my competence was a threat. The title echoed in my mind. I was escorted out while they threw a party for my replacement, but she opened my files and I felt the stares of my colleagues, who quickly looked away, ashamed to witness my public execution. My eyes locked onto the woman, standing inside the conference room, laughing a little too loudly. She was young, blonde, dressed in an expensive suit, and clearly the guest of honor. It was Veronica. A wave of nausea hit me. Just last week, I had seen Veronica at a high-end restaurant with Victor, their hands lingering. The pieces snapped into place like cold steel. The erratic decision-making, the denied promotions, the sudden poor performance firing. Victor hadn't fired me because I was a bad employee. He had fired me because I was a complication. He needed to install his mistress, Veronica, to take the credit for the project I had spent 2 years perfecting and secure his year-end bonus. The security guard, a man named Sam, was thankfully decent. Sam leaned in. 5 minutes at your desk, Marcus. Get your personal stuff. That's all I can do. Victor stood by the doorway, arms crossed, watching with a predator's smugness. Veronica hovered too, already moving toward my old, familiar desk. I sat down, my hands moving automatically. I logged into my secure drive. While they watched me pack photos, my fingers danced across the keyboard in a rapid, silent sequence of commands. This was the one thing Victor hadn't factored in. Only I knew the deep, proprietary architecture of Project Sentinel. The critical 5 minutes were almost up. My fingers implemented a tiny, highly complex code, string deep within Sentinel's core framework. I disguised it as a necessary but obscure federal regulatory compliance check required only for final project certification. It was completely non-malicious, a perfect compliance trap. I set the timer. The code would run a deep data integrity scan only when the project was submitted for final launch, approximately 72 hours from now. If the scan failed, it wouldn't crash the system. It would simply flag the entire multi-million-dollar project as non-compliant with obscure but vital federal regulations, halting the launch. Victor, sensing I was done, strode over. Time's up, Marcus. And don't worry about Project Sentinel. Veronica will easily clean up the mess you left. He grabbed the badge from my hand. As Sam led me away, Victor physically steered us past conference room door. The party was in full swing. My colleagues averted their eyes, holding plastic cups of cheap champagne. The humiliation was total, a public shaming that felt like a physical assault. My face remained a frozen mask, showing nothing. But in my mind, I pictured the timer ticking down inside the code. 2 days later, I met my former colleague and mentor, Philip, for coffee miles away from the office. Philip looked sick with guilt. Marcus, I'm so sorry. It's despicable. Victor's telling everyone you were incompetent and erratic. I kept my voice low and level. I subtly explained the compliance trap I had set up, the time-delayed regulatory check that would trigger upon launch. I explained that the trap was non-malicious and necessary for real compliance, proving I acted only to protect the company's integrity. The fix is simple, Philip, but only I know the back door to bypass the regulatory check. If it triggers, Project Sentinel is dead on arrival. Philip was horrified, but understood the strategic brilliance. I showed him the detailed documentation I had prepared. Files I titled Veritas_0103, which contained fully documented evidence of Victor's corporate negligence, his personal spending on company cards, and the systemic, illegal shortcuts he had forced me to take. This was a real bomb, a guarantee of Victor's ruin. Keep my name out of this, Philip, I instructed. I only want Victor to face the consequences of his arrogance. The next week, my luck, my true value, was recognized. I received a fantastic offer from Nexus Corp, Ether's top competitor, known for its ethical practices in valuing engineers. They had seen my work on a complex white paper and wanted me immediately. The pay was 30% higher, and the title was senior director. I accepted immediately. The underdog was now an executive. I was no longer a humiliated cast-off. I was a rising star. The fear of financial ruin vanished. Back at Ether, the internal buzz was that Veronica was a genius. She strutted around the office, accepting praise, ignoring complexity of Sentinel. She spent more time with Victor in his office than at her desk. She was so blinded by her new title and Victor's flattery that she was clearly neglecting the critical final code review. I could practically hear the timer ticking toward the board presentation. Victor, drunk on his own sense of superiority, rushed the launch. He convinced the board chairman, Mr. Albright, that Project Sentinel was ready ahead of schedule, bragging about Veronica's efficiency. He pushed the final board presentation to an earlier date, convinced he would secure his massive bonus before the end of the month. His arrogance was a self-destruct mechanism. I performed my final piece of planning. I sent an anonymous email to Veronica's work account, disguised as a generic final regulatory compliance reminder from a fictional third-party auditor. The email contained a specific, seemingly benign string of words, the exact trigger phrase she would need to access the Veritas files I had uploaded to secure external cloud drive. She wouldn't open the files until the disaster struck. The day of the board presentation arrived. It was high noon. Marcus was already in his new, comfortable office at Nexus Corporation. Across town, Veronica sat at the main boardroom table, Victor looking on smugly, Veronica nervous but arrogant, prepared to execute the final project launch command. This was the moment she would claim the credit and secure Victor's bonus. Veronica typed the final command and hit enter. The code ran for precisely 4 seconds before it violently halted. The massive screen at the front of the room, meant to display the triumphant launch complete, flashed a single, terrifying error message in aggressive, bold red text. Regulatory fail. Data integrity compromise. The system shut down completely. The room went silent. Marcus's compliance trap had sprung perfectly. Victor's face went from smug confidence to a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. He launched into a furious panic frenzy. Fix it. Fix the damn bug, Veronica. You incompetent idiot, he shrieked, instantly abandoning his mistress and exposing his own deep technical ignorance to the entire board. Mr. Albright, the chairman, stood up, his face grim. Victor, sit down. Veronica, what is the meaning of this? I demand a full explanation. Veronica, realizing Victor would throw her under the bus instantly, frantically scanned the error message on the main screen. She saw the coded signature. See files. Veritas_0103. She remembered the strange, anonymous regulatory reminder email. She quickly typed the trigger phrase into her laptop's secure browser. The Veritas files downloaded immediately. Veronica opened them, expecting a virus, but found meticulously documented evidence. Screenshots of Victor specific, written orders to Marcus to bypass key regulatory checks to save time. The files proved that the failure wasn't a bug. It was Victor's willful criminal negligence. The The documents also contained a discreet but damning paper trail of Victor funding personal vacations and expensive dinners with Veronica using corporate accounts. Veronica, a survivor, realized she could either go down with Victor or sell him out. She chose survival. She quietly printed key pages and handed them directly to Mr. Albright, the chairman. "Mr. Albright," she whispered, her voice shaking, "I think I've discovered why Marcus was truly fired." These files were left behind, showing that Victor was forcing his team to commit fraud. Mr. Albright, reading the cold, hard documentation of corporate fraud and embezzlement, called an emergency session. Victor was dismissed from the boardroom and told to wait in his office. The board's anger was palpable. They weren't angry about the project failure. They were furious about the exposed legal liability and Victor's financial misconduct. A half hour later, Victor was escorted out of Ether Financial for the final time. This was not a quiet, private removal. He was screaming, his face purple with rage, shouting threats and curses at Mr. Albright, who stood impassively at the elevator bank. The entire office watched the loud, humiliating spectacle of his total collapse. The poetic justice was complete. The man who publicly humiliated Marcus was now publicly destroying himself. I received a text from Philip later that evening. "Victor is officially gone, fired for gross misconduct and fraud. Veronica also gone. Albright said she tried to claim she was the one who discovered the fraud. Poetic justice, my friend. They lost everything." The cold anger I had felt for weeks finally dissipated, replaced by a quiet, deep satisfaction. I was thriving at Nexus Corporation. My boss treated me with respect and valued my meticulous approach to compliance. I was tasked with leading a new high-value project that was already beating Ether's stalled Sentinel project in the market. I had not only regained my standing, I had catapulted past my former company and my former life. A lawyer called a week later. Ether Financial, in a bid to mitigate the fraud scandal and avoid further litigation, was forced to pay me a massive severance package, including the promotion bonus I was wrongly denied, in exchange for my silence regarding Victor's actions. My financial recovery was substantial and complete. I had won on every front. Months later, I drove past the Ether Financial building. The prominent corporate sign was gone, replaced by a generic banner. The company was struggling to recover. I felt no emotion, not even pity. I realized the true victory wasn't destroying Victor. It was reclaiming my peace and recognizing that my competence was my greatest defense. I looked ahead at the road, leading to my new, brilliant future. The best revenge, I concluded, was not the screaming rage of the victim, but the quiet, strategic competence of the person who chose to walk away and build a better life. Victor's arrogance had destroyed him. My integrity had saved me. I was successful, I was whole, and I would never look back. My worth was never tied to his seating chart. If you've made it this far, you understand. Respect is non-negotiable. My worth wasn't defined by Victor's ego, the public escort, or who got the credit for Project Sentinel. My story proves that silence can be a weapon, and strategic patience can be power against abusers who profit from your talent. If this resonated with you, if you've been gaslit into believing your competence is a threat, share it. Tell them. Your silence doesn't make you weak. It means you are coding your next move. Your boundaries don't make you difficult. Your survival makes you extraordinary. Because the revolution happens when you decide to write your own ending. Your value was never in question. It was only ever waiting to be remembered. Have you ever had to reclaim your work from a narcissistic boss? Share your story in the comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.